Welcome back to Exploring Psychology Through Science Fiction. The first lecture this week was focused on memory, and today's lecture is going to be talking about technology and learning. What is learning? Learning is the acquisition of knowledge and skills through experience, study, or being taught. Psychologically, there's a little bit different definition, and that is learning is a process that depends on experience and leads to long-term changes in behavior potential. Okay, well, what's behavior potential? That's possible behavior. So as we learn, we alter the way we perceive our environment, the way we interpret incoming stimuli, and therefore the way we interact or behave. So if you've successfully learned, you have modified your behavior in response to the environment. Now, so if we haven't learned, we keep doing the same thing over and over, even though it doesn't get us the results that we want. Okay. Now, we're supposed to be talking about memory, is what I was previously talking about. What's the connection between memory and learning? Well, memory is just the record of what we have learned. If I'm supposed to be studying vocabulary words, but I can't get them incorporated and put into long-term storage and then pull them back out, retrieve them, then I haven't effectively learned. So memory is a crucial aspect of learning. Someone who doesn't learn from their past experiences, from their memories, isn't going to change their behavior. So now let's bring in technology. Can technology create a shortcut for us to learn? And the answer is it already has. Today's instant access to information and knowledge allows people to learn more and to learn more quickly. Prior to the internet, when you had a question or wanted to learn something, you had to seek someone out that could answer it, or go to the library and start looking through books, or blow the dust off of a stack of encyclopedia books and try to find an answer. Now, you have instant access to more information than you could possibly consume. And it's really changed so much about how we learn. For example, this online class. While the way ASU has some of these classes set up, you still have to be an on-campus student, but some of the other courses that they offer can be taken from someone on the other side of the world. So technology has opened up education and learning to so many more people than who previously had access to it. Now, there have been concerns about teaching online. A lot of professors are reluctant to make this step. One of the biggest complaints is the loss of the didactic discussion, the give and take, the feedback that we get by having instant question and answer sessions. However, what we're finding is that doesn't actually make that big of a difference in a student learning the material. You don't have to be able to answer the question immediately or ask it. You can send an email, you can use the discussion boards. So you don't really lose out on anything by not being in the same room with me at the same time. However, I mentioned that instant access, the immediate gratification. We've gotten hooked on immediate access to information. I get frustrated when a web page doesn't immediately load. If there's any kind of buffering anymore, if I can't pull up something on my phone exactly when I want it, I get frustrated. But what this also has led to is that we're not necessarily willing to take the time to really research our question and find out what all information is out there. It's much easier just to go to Wikipedia, assume that that's correct, and go with it. However, Wikipedia entries are changed all the time. There's inaccurate information in those all the time. And so that's something else to keep in mind, is when we rely on somebody to supply not only the knowledge, but the interpretation of the meaning and the application of the knowledge, we're giving them so much control over our thoughts and our behaviors. If I'm just going to go to one web page and read what they say about the answer to my question, well, how much research did they do? How accurate is what they've said? Do they have an agenda? Last week we were talking a lot about the bias that people have, and that popular media can put a spin on things and misinterpret misinterpret the research inaccurately. So if we don't really do that research for ourselves, if we just take somebody's word for it from the first web page that comes up, we're really letting go of a lot of control. And that brings us to thinking about the concept of who is in control of that information. Well, I typically use Google to do my searches. Google already knows a lot about me, and they have their own algorithms for what web pages are shown first. They have the different advertisements that come up on the sidebar based on what they know about me. So not only do we have to keep in mind how to answer or how to ask our questions so that we get the most accurate information, but we've also got to learn to be more critical of the information that we choose to consume. Part of figuring out what's accurate and not, what's legitimate and not, is really based on examining the source. So we're back to doing critical thinking skills. Just like we've talked about previously, you need to step back and say, who am I getting this information from? What is it based on? Is there an agenda? Is there a bias? Who's controlling the information? Because that's what it is. If I choose to put down just a certain amount of information that supports my point or supports my agenda, and I leave off the stuff that's contrary to that, then I'm controlling that information that you get. Now, just based on a single web page and one person's perspective, that's not a big deal. But we also see a lot more severe examples of that control as well. Many countries limit access to the internet. They control what web pages you can go to. They limit access to Facebook, to Twitter, especially if there's a lot of unrest in the country at that time. They'll shut those services down. Google prioritizes what web pages we see. Facebook screens your news feed. They only show you certain ones. Recently there was a big news article about research that had been done where they manipulated what we saw on our news feeds. And that got a lot of people upset, but that's something that happens all the time. That's the same concept that TV commercials use, is they are trying to present you with a particular way of viewing something, that this beer will make you popular, this car will make you successful, whatever. But they're trying to present that to you. They're giving you a certain amount of information and withholding other information to try to get you to do what they want, go buy their product. So, another example about the control of information is the concerns about net neutrality. If some services have to pay to get higher speeds, that keeps the big money in control and keeps any newcomers or upstarts from having the same access. And I'm sure you can come up with lots of other examples of how information is controlled, especially on the internet. But it's something that we need to be thinking about critically. Okay, so finally, let's get to Old Man's War. Why did I pick this book? Well, first of all, it's just a great book and a great series. I really love it. But I also, for this week's topic, I wanted to focus on the BrainPal. What is the BrainPal? Well, it's an implanted computer interface that allows instant communication, instant access to information, and it can be very intrusive. What were the names that people gave them? I'm not going to say it, but I think you remember. This was implanted in them without their knowledge. They didn't know it was going to be done when they got their new bodies. They were very overwhelmed and thrown off by this. To have something projected directly into your brain that isn't necessarily under your control is a pretty scary thought. If you go on and read the sequel, the Ghost Brigades, they talk about adult soldiers that are brought into consciousness with the help of a BrainPal. So they have a body, not someone that's grown up and lived and transferred over, but there's no consciousness present. They take an adult grown body and with the help of a BrainPal bring that body into consciousness. They provide them with all the information that they feel those soldiers need, and the Ghost Brigades grow up communicating primarily through the BrainPal. They don't like talking to non-members of the Ghost Brigade because they think so much slower. They aren't able to communicate emotion instantly. It's a completely different way of communicating because of how they came into consciousness. So the BrainPal usage in Old Man's War is one step, but it goes to a whole nother level in the Ghost Brigade. So I'd encourage you to go on and read that as well when you have the chance. So what does all this mean as far as technology and memory and learning? Well, if somebody else can control the computer that's hooked up to me, right now we can focus on our smartphones or Google Glass, where those companies have access to what information is presented to us. Right now it's somewhat limited. It's the web pages that come up first. It's the commercials that pop up specifically based on your previous searches. It's still limited, but as they learn more and more about you and have more and more instant access to your brain, at what point does it become presenting you with information versus inserting that alongside your memories? A memory is just what we think we've learned or what we remember we've learned. As we talked about in the previous lecture, memories aren't all that accurate. They can be changed. And so if someone has access to our brains, they could hypothetically be changing our memories to more suit their priorities. So these are just some of the fascinating things that we need to be thinking about as we incorporate technology more and more into our lives. But the thing to keep in mind is that we are controlled by our memories. They define who we are. They encompass all that we know. They encompass how we interpret different things. If someone can gain access to our memories, how much could that change us? When people develop amnesia, their personalities can change depending on how much of their memories they've lost, because we develop and we change by what's happened to us previously. So our memories, if they're either erased or supplemented or changed, that can change who we are, how we think, how we act. And this can be seen in any number of science fiction works. In The Matrix, they show us implanting new procedural memories. I just get Kung Fu downloaded and I know how to do that. Or I get, they upload how to fly a helicopter and I instantly have that. In Total Recall, we get the new episodic memories. So I can put the memories of a vacation into my head, and it's just like I went on that vacation. I can't tell a difference between the new implanted memories versus the ones that were created naturally through my experiences. In Star Wars, you've got the Force suggestions. I can implant perceptions and memories using the Force. In Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, people's painful memories can be erased. In Dollhouse, you can implant a whole new personality just based on the memories that they have. So science fiction has done a great job of not only imagining how memories can be changed and implanted for us, but what that technology might look like as well. And we're already getting there. How we learn has changed because of technology. If we look at my history, we're going to date me now, but I didn't have the internet until the end of college. I could go up to the computer labs and get online my senior year. Was when it first became available. In my first year of grad school, I had dial-up at home, so I could use my phone line and connect, and that was back when you'd see pictures would come up on the screen one line of pixels at a time, and you'd slowly wait for a picture to come up. But that started to happen, but that was not how I primarily learned. Now I've got my smartphone, which is more powerful than the computer I went to college with, and is capable of doing more in some ways. I carry that around me constantly and have immediate access to that. So it's going to continue to change and become so much more inclusive in our everyday lives. So I hope this has given you a lot to think about, and we'll talk more about it in the discussion. See you next time.